I'm Elaine Wood. I'm 78 years old. My 3 kids have been subtly, and not so subtly, planning for their inheritance since they were in their 40s. So last week, I took the money I'd been hoarding for their future and booked a 180-day world cruise for Walter and me. Let me tell you what happened. You see, I spent my whole life working and saving for them. 45 years in real estate in Frederick. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I made a terrible mistake. I taught them to wait for my death instead of building their own lives. And what it cost me was the joy. I missed spending my money with them. I created this tense, quiet war in my own living room, and I finally saw it. It all started to crack 6 months ago, at my granddaughter Chloe's graduation party. The house in Orchard Heights was full of noise and future talk, but for my kids, the future they were discussing, it felt different. I was bringing out a platter of my deviled eggs when I heard it, my daughter, Lisa. She was pointing to Walter's new golf clubs in the corner. She whispered to her brother, "That's coming out of your share, you know. How much do you think those cost?" They laughed. It wasn't a warm laugh. It was a cold sound, a calculating sound. I felt like an appliance, the ATM that also makes potato salad. I tried to shake it off, a bad joke. But a week later, my son David came over. He dropped by. He sat right there on my floral couch. He had a brochure for the Cedars, a luxury assisted living place. He was so earnest, he said, "It has a wait list, Mom. We just need to put down a deposit to secure your spot." He thought he was being responsible, a good planner. But all I heard was, "We need to secure our spot for when you're gone." I was angry. I was so angry. I was still reeling from that when the phone rang 2 days later. It was Mark, my youngest. He called to check in, but it quickly turned into a rant. His business loan was denied. His voice was tight, frustrated. And then he said it. "It's fine, we'll manage. It's not like we have a safety net or anything." He meant me. In that moment, I wasn't his mom. I was a financial instrument, a safety net that had failed to perform. The words just hung there in the air between us. After I hung up, I couldn't move. I just sat at my kitchen table. That's where Walter found me. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just pulled up a chair. He took my hand. His hands are still rough from gardening, and he waited. When I finally told him about the ledger, the brochure, the safety net, he just nodded. He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "Elaine, we worked for 45 years. We raised them. We helped with college, with weddings. It's our turn." Our turn. He saw it. He saw the whole map of my life drawn out in their balance sheets. I felt vulnerable, and I felt heard. That same night, I got out my laptop. Walter, God bless him, didn't say a word. He just went to the kitchen. I heard him getting out the good gin, the martini glasses. I found it, a 180-day world cruise, Tokyo, Sydney, Cape Town, Venice. I typed in our names, Elaine and Walter Wood. My finger hovered over the button. I thought of all the sensible things that money was for. The future, their future. Then I clicked purchase. I was terrified, and I was exhilarated. The confirmation email hit my inbox with a soft ping. I took a deep breath, and then I did the next brave thing. I forwarded that email right into the family group chat. No explanation, just the subject line, Bon voyage, and that huge itinerary below. I pictured Lisa, David, and Mark opening it. I imagined the stunned silence in their separate houses, the frantic texts to each other in a new chat I wasn't in. I put my phone face down on the table. Walter handed me a martini. We clinked glasses, and then we waited. The silence was the loudest sound I've ever heard. The phone didn't ring that night, or the next morning. The group chat was a ghost town. For 24 hours, nothing. No, wow, Mom. No, are you serious? No, how could you? It was a pure, punitive silence. And that silence told me everything. It confirmed every terrible feeling I'd had at the graduation party. They weren't worried about me. They were auditing me. I felt sad, but I also felt resolute. Sitting here now in my sunroom in Orchard Heights, the final payment cleared. That silence has become my clarity. I understand now that I built this. I fed this monster. I was the one who always said, "Don't worry, you'll be taken care of later." I talked about the will like it was a second Christmas. I sacrificed trips so the account would grow. I taught them that my ultimate value was in my absence. I trained them to see a portfolio where they should have seen a person. I regret that deeply. But here's my advice. Spend your money now. Not recklessly, but joyfully. Write the check for your grandkids' school trip now. Book the cabin at the lake now. Help with a down payment while you're alive to drink wine on their porch. Your legacy shouldn't be a number they fight over. It should be the memory of your laugh on a gondola. Let them be inspired by your life, not just your death. The suitcases are open in the guest room. Walter is researching shore excursions. My phone is still quiet, and that's okay. The tension I felt for years is gone. It's been replaced by a different energy. The same energy I used to have showing houses. This is our turn. So if you're listening and you feel like a human bank account, it's not too late. Be a little less sensible. Be a little more alive. Book the ticket. Take the trip. Your kids will be okay. More importantly, you will be alive to see it. Our ship sails next month. I'll send a postcard. I'll send a postcard. But first, I need to tell you about the phone call. The one that finally broke the silence. It came 3 days after I sent the group chat. My phone buzzed on the sunroom table, and Walter looked up from his crossword. It was David, the planner. My stomach dropped. I answered. "Hi, David." "Mom." His voice was tight. No, how are you? Just, Mom, we got your email. We need to talk about this. Okay, I said. I kept my voice light. What would you like to know? The ship has a putting green. Walter's thrilled. He ignored that. This is a significant financial decision. A 180-day cruise? The cost must be astronomical. We're concerned. This seems impulsive. I looked at Walter. He raised an eyebrow. I could feel the old me wanting to soothe him, to explain. But the new me just said, "It wasn't impulsive, David. It was very considered." "Considered how?" he shot back. "Did you consider your long-term care needs? The market is volatile. This isn't the time to deplete liquid assets on a vacation." And there it was, liquid assets. That's what I was. That's what my life's work had become to him. A column on a spreadsheet that was getting dangerously low. "David," I said, and my voice was quieter than I wanted it to be. "Your father and I are in good health. We've planned for our care. This is our money. From selling houses for 45 years. We earned it." "We know you earned it," he said, and I could hear him trying to soften his tone, the way you talk to a child. "But you've always been so sensible." "This isn't sensible, Mom. It's reckless." "What about your grandchildren's education? What about the future?" The future. That word again. It used to mean dreams. Now it just meant a date on a calendar after my name. "We're living the future right now, David," I said, "and we're going to see Tokyo." There was a long pause. I heard him sigh, a frustrated, put-upon sound. "Can you at least send us the financial details? The cost breakdown? The cancellation policy? Maybe we can salvage this." Salvage it, like a shipwreck. He didn't want to talk me out of it for my sake. He wanted the paperwork so he could try to undo it. "No," I said. The word felt strange in my mouth. Simple, clean. "No, I won't be sending that. The decision is made. The payment cleared. We're going." "Mom, be reasonable." "I love you, David. We'll see you before we leave." And I hung up. My hand was shaking. I'd never hung up on one of my children before. Walter got up, came over, and put his hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The dam was broken after that. Lisa called next. It was all tears. "How could you do this to us, Mom? We're your family. Don't you want to leave something for your family?" She made it sound like I was setting the money on fire in the backyard instead of using it to see the world. I told her I was leaving them plenty of memories and a mother who finally learned how to live. She cried harder. Mark, my safety net, sent a text. Just one line. Unbelievable. That one hurt the most, because it was so bare. No pretense of concern, just pure, unvarnished disappointment in my financial performance. You see, in those calls, in that text, I finally heard the truth I'd been avoiding. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control. I had controlled the promise of that money for decades, using it as a leash. And they had controlled me with their expectations, their plans drawn from my lifespan. By spending it, I was cutting the leash. I was taking back the steering wheel of my own life. And they were terrified. Not for me, for themselves. Let me tell you about a flashback I had right in the middle of all this. It was after David's call. I was so upset, I went to the kitchen to bake. My hands were measuring flour, and I was suddenly 20 years younger in this same kitchen. Lisa was here, maybe 35. She was going through a divorce. She was crying at this table. And I said to her, "Don't you worry about a thing. You'll always be taken care of. You have your inheritance." I said it to comfort her. But what did I teach her? I taught her that her stability was tied to my death. I taught her to look past her own 2 feet, past her own strength, to some far-off date when her problems would be solved by my absence. I did that. I thought I was being a good mother, a provider. I was building a monster, one comforting promise at a time. So when they called me reckless, what they really meant was, "You're changing the rules." And I was. For the first time in maybe 40 years, the rules were mine. The week after the calls was quiet again, but a different quiet. It wasn't a punitive silence anymore. It was a waiting silence, a standoff. Walter and I started packing. We bought ridiculous hats. We got travel guides from the library in Frederick. We were like kids, whispering and laughing over brochures at the kitchen table. It felt like a secret rebellion, just the 2 of us. And then, yesterday, the final payment cleared the bank. I sat in this sunroom and watched the notification pop up on my screen. It was done. No take-backs. The money was gone from that account. It was transformed. It was now tickets and meals and sunsets over the Pacific Ocean. I looked at Walter. He was dozing in his chair, a book about Australian birds open on his chest. And I felt it. Not anxiety, not fear. A huge, swelling sense of relief. The weight was gone. The weight of being the keeper of the future, the guardian of the treasure. It was spent. It was now an adventure. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt light. I felt free. The phone hasn't rung today. I don't know if it will, but I know something now. I know that my legacy isn't in that bank statement they were all watching. It's in the suitcase full of silly hats. It's in Walter's rough hand holding mine on a deck at sunset. It's in the postcards I'll send. Maybe they'll understand that one day. Maybe they'll be angry for a while. But I'm not waiting for their permission to live my life anymore. That's the real inheritance I'm giving them, whether they want it or not. The example of a woman who finally stopped waiting and started living. That example of a woman who finally stopped waiting. I wanted to be her. But let me tell you, the week after the payment cleared was the hardest. Because the silence from my kids turned into something else. It turned into a presence. a heavy, watchful presence right here in Orchard Heights. Lisa showed up, unannounced. She walked into my kitchen with a casserole like that was normal. She doesn't cook. She bought it at the store in Frederick. "I was just thinking of you, Mom," she said, putting it in my fridge. Her eyes weren't on me. They were scanning the room. I knew what she was looking for. Evidence. Cruise brochures, packing lists, receipts. She was taking inventory. We sat at the table with coffee. She talked about her kids, about work, about nothing. It was all chatter, filling the space where the big question was screaming. Finally, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She put her cup down. It clicked too loud on the saucer. "Mom," she said. Her voice was too bright. Fake. "About this trip, it's so long. What if something happens? To you or to Dad? We'd be so far away. We couldn't get to you." I looked at her. My daughter. The little girl I'd driven to 1,000,000 soccer games. And I saw it. The fear in her eyes wasn't for my safety. It was for the logistics. The terrible, inconvenient logistics of a medical emergency happening in international waters, far from the tidy estate plan filed in a Frederick lawyer's office. "We have insurance, Lisa," I said, keeping my voice even. "Very good insurance." "But still," she pressed. Her hands were twisting in her lap. "It's not just that. It's everything. The money. It's just gone? Poof? All of it?" And there it was, the heart of it. Poof. "It's not gone," I said quietly. "It's just somewhere else now." She stared at me like I was speaking another language. She couldn't see the transformation. The money had been a solid, dependable thing in a column on a page. Now it was an idea, an experience. It was vapor to her. It terrified her. She left soon after, her mission a failure. She hadn't gotten me to confess a dollar amount. She hadn't gotten me to reconsider. She just left the casserole, which Walter later pointed out had a receipt tucked under it. It was from a fancy grocery store. $32. I stared at that receipt. Was that her calculation? A $32 peace offering for a conversation about hundreds of thousands. That night I couldn't sleep. I got up and went to the den, to the old filing cabinet where I kept the family papers. I pulled out the thick folder labeled Estate. I hadn't opened it in years. Walter found me there on the floor at 2 a.m, the contents spread around me like sad confetti. He didn't tell me to come back to bed. He just sat on the floor with me. He picked up a paper. It was the will, the one we'd updated after our last grandchild was born. "What are you looking for, Elaine?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. "I don't know," I whispered. "Proof, I guess. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that we did everything right for them." I started reading it out loud. The legalese, the percentages. To our daughter, Lisa Ann Miller, 33% of the residuary estate. To our son, David James Wood, 33%. To our son, Mark Thomas Wood, 34%. On and on. The house, the investments, the directives. It was a blueprint for the distribution of a life, once that life was over. I looked up at Walter. The overhead light was harsh. It showed every line on his dear face. "Listen to this," I said, my voice breaking. "It's all about after. After we're gone. After we're not here. There's nothing in here about while we're alive, while we can see their faces." I found an older document, a college savings plan for Chloe from when she was born. I'd contributed to it every month, faithfully. "See," I said, thrusting it at Walter, "I did this. I planned. I was the responsible one." Walter took the paper. He looked at it, then at me. "Elaine," he said so gently, "who were you saving it for?" "For Chloe, for her future." "And did you ever take her on a trip? Just you and her? Did you ever use some of this to make a memory with her while you were both alive to have it?" I opened my mouth, and then I closed it. I thought of Chloe, my bright, funny granddaughter. She'd asked me last year, when she was home from college, if I'd ever been to Paris. I said no, not yet. She'd said, "We should go, Grandma, before you get too old." And I'd laughed and said, "Oh, honey, that's a young person's trip, and it's so expensive." I'd patted her hand. I'd told her to focus on her studies. I'd told her her future was bright. I'd said no to Paris with my granddaughter so I could keep adding money to an account for a future I might not even see. Right there on the den floor, surrounded by the paperwork of my death, it broke me. I started to cry, not quiet tears, huge heaving sobs that came from a place so deep inside I didn't know it existed. I cried for all the no's. "No, we can't take that family cruise. It's not sensible. No, we shouldn't remodel the sunroom. Let's leave the equity for the kids. No, Walter, don't buy the boat. Think of the inheritance." No, no, no. I had said no to our life, to our joy. And I had said yes to being a line item, a balanced column, a future transaction. Walter just held me. He didn't shush me. He didn't tell me it was okay. He just let me cry it all out onto his shoulder. When the sobs finally subsided into shaky breaths, I was exhausted, hollowed out. I looked at the mess of papers. "I did this," I whispered. "I taught them this was the most important thing. This folder, not me. This." Walter helped me up. He didn't pick up the papers. He left them there. He led me to the kitchen and made tea. We sat at the table where Lisa had sat just hours before, with her fear and her casserole. "It's not too late, you know," Walter said, his hand over mine. "We're still here." I nodded, but the weight of it, the weight of all those years of saying no, it felt so heavy. I had wanted to be an example of responsibility, and instead, I'd become an example of delayed life. I'd shown my children how to wait, and they'd learned the lesson perfectly. They were just waiting for the final signal, the one I was now refusing to give. The understanding that washed over me then wasn't angry. It was sad, a deep, grieving sadness. I hadn't just lost money on a cruise, I'd lost time. I'd lost opportunities for joy with the people I loved most. I'd traded someday for today, over and over, until all my todays were just waiting rooms for a someday that was finally here. And the hardest part? The very hardest part? I knew they wouldn't understand. Not yet. Maybe not ever. To them, I was spending their security. I was burning the safety net. They couldn't see that I was trying to build a bridge instead. A bridge to a different kind of family, one that valued presence over portfolio. I was the one who had to cross that bridge first, alone if necessary, with Walter thankfully. But knowing they were on the other shore, watching me go, thinking I was walking away from them, when really, for the first time, I was walking toward myself. Walking toward myself. That's what I'm doing. And here's what I learned on the way, sitting in this sunroom in Orchard Heights, looking at the suitcases. I learned that I was wrong. For 45 years in real estate, I thought the most valuable thing I could build was equity. For my kids, I thought the best gift was a fat bank account with my name on it, waiting for them. But the truth is, the most valuable thing you can build is a life. A real, lived-in, joyful life. And the best gift you can give your children is the example of how to live one. I taught them to wait. I did that. Every time I said, "We can't afford that trip," when we could, but I wanted the savings to grow. Every time I talked about the will at the dinner table like it was part of the menu. Every time I hinted that their struggles would be solved someday. I was pointing them to a horizon line, my death, and telling them that's where the good stuff was. I made my absence more valuable than my presence. And they learned the lesson. Oh, they learned it perfectly. They became experts in waiting. And I became the thing they were waiting on. That's the monster I fed. Not with malice, but with what I thought was love. I thought love was provision, and it is, partly. But provision isn't just money. It's joy, it's time. It's saying yes to a spontaneous lunch, yes to helping with a down payment today so you can sit on their new porch next week. Yes to a ridiculous cruise when you're 78 years old. I said no for so long, trying to be sensible, that I forgot what the money was for. It was for living. So here's my direct advice to you, if you're listening and any of this sounds familiar. Stop. Just stop. Look at your bank statement and then look at your calendar. Which one has more empty spaces? Start filling the calendar today. Not with doctor's appointments, but with adventures, big or small. It doesn't have to be a world cruise. It can be a weekend at a bed and breakfast an hour away. It can be taking your granddaughter to Paris, like I should have done with Chloe. Call your son and say, "Let's go to a ball game this weekend, my treat." Call your daughter and say, "I'm booking us a spa day." Do it while you can still hear them laugh. Do it while you can still make the memory together. Your kids do not need a perfect, untouched inheritance. They need a mother who laughs so hard she snorts. They need a father who tries sushi for the first time and makes a face. They need to see you living, not just existing, waiting for the end. They might be angry at first. They might call you reckless like David did. That's their fear talking. Fear that the safety net is gone. But you know what? They'll learn to build their own net. They'll have to. And that's a better gift. A mother who is a person, not a policy, gives them permission to be full people too, not just beneficiaries in waiting. I have regret. Of course I do. I regret every no I uttered to Walter when he wanted to buy that little fishing boat. I regret every family vacation we didn't take because the market was too volatile. I regret not seeing the Great Barrier Reef when my knees were better. But regret is a teacher, not a jailer. I'm not letting it lock me up in this house in Frederick for whatever time I have left. I'm using it as fuel. The fuel that booked the cruise. The fuel that is packing those suitcases right now. You still have time. Maybe your knees are bad. Maybe your balance is off. Maybe you can't sail around the world, but you can do something. You can redefine what legacy means. Let it be the smell of your famous cookies in their kitchen, not the number on a statement. Let it be the well-worn pages of a photo album full of pictures of you actually in the pictures, not just behind the camera. Let it be the story they tell at your funeral about the time you did that wild, unexpected thing, not the polite conversation about how responsible you were. This is where I'm supposed to tell you to go live your life. And I am. But I also want to tell you about this place, this channel. It's full of stories like mine. People who've lived a long time and learned some hard, beautiful lessons the hard way. We're here to share them, so maybe you don't have to learn everything the hard way. If my story about being an ATM with a heartbeat meant something to you, if it made you think, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. There are more stories here from people who've lost and loved and learned, and they just might help you. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me, what's one thing you're going to say yes to this week? What's the trip you've been putting off? Or just tell me your story. I'll read them. Walter and I will have plenty of time at sea to read. If you felt a little spark of recognition, hit the like button. It lets me know this mattered. And share this video. Share it with your sister, your brother, your best friend who's always talking about their someday inheritance. Maybe it'll start a conversation they need to have. Maybe you have a story of your own, something you figured out after 70 years that could help someone else find their way. There's a link down in the description where you can tell the folks who run this channel about it. Maybe next time we'll be listening to you. A book that helped me find the courage? The Gift of Years by Joan Chittister. It's not about money. It's about not apologizing for the time you have left. about claiming it. I've put a link to it below, too. Our ship sails from New York next month. Walter has his binoculars ready. I bought a sun hat with a ridiculously wide brim. The silence from my kids is still here, but it doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels like space. Space for me to breathe. Space for them to get used to the new map, the one where I'm not just a dot labeled future funds. Don't wait for your kids to give you permission to live your life. They won't. They're waiting for you to give them permission to live theirs. So go first. Be a little less sensible. Be a lot more alive. The money will be spent. The memories will be yours forever. And that's an inheritance no one can dispute. I'm Elaine Wood. I'm 78, and I'm going to see the world.